Here on the Morning Wake Up, we're going to talk a little bit about health care and health care coverage. And we've just seen a deadline pass here. There were a lot of emails folks were getting, like in just a few days, you're not going to be able to get Obamacare anymore, the January 31st deadline, et cetera, et cetera. This is for new coverage. What about those who didn't have it in 2015 and the possible penalties they face out there with their taxes? And which group is more likely to incur this penalty? Somebody who's in their 30s, 40s with a family, young millennials in their 20s who are just getting started up. They got to worry about paying student loans now, about where this coverage is coming from. These are the ones that the government wants to get in because they're going to pay for the people who need health care. And yet some have said, look, I'll just eat the penalty. But those penalties are going up. Let's visit with health insurance expert Danny O'Connell on the topic here. Good morning, Danny.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Welcome back to the show. There's always something interesting going on with the national health care issue, and now a couple of things have gone on. One, the penalty factor for 2015, it's up here as people do their taxes, and they may be getting sticker shock. And two, we've had that deadline pass for Obamacare. Are there enough new people enrolled to float this thing through for another year, or is it going to be dicey?
Yeah, I want to hit that last question first, because what you're going to hear the administration, everybody really trump what a huge success it is this year. Numbers and enrollment are going up and up every year. This is the mandate, what the people wanted. But in reality, last year more people lost their coverage than in any given year throughout the history of the Affordable Care Act. So what you saw is more people had their policies canceled and dropped, so they were forced to enroll into the new plans. In many instances, they lost doctors, lost networks, their prescription drug coverage changed. And I kind of talk about that being the hidden rate increase that people don't anticipate.
So where do people, and you follow this, you trend it out, the people who are satisfied with the move over, are they primarily in the lower economic group, in the lowest earnings section group, that they're probably satisfied, they now have coverage, they can count on X, Y, and Z? Where are the people most dissatisfied with the National Affordable Care Act and Obamacare?
Yeah, so that's a good segment. I don't know if people are really satisfied. Even the people that are on the lower end, they're getting subsidies, they're having to go out and get catastrophic policies, and they're going into providers and saying, well, now I have insurance. I'd want to see the doctor and have all this done, and the providers are great. Number one, you have to pay the first $6,000 or $6,850 out of pocket before any of this is covered. Yeah. And we don't take that insurance, by the way. So, yeah, you're delivering a product to some at a lower price point, but what are you really getting? And unfortunately, the people who it's affecting the most from a cost perspective is the middle class.
And so they've been hit particularly hard, even with some subsidies, right?
Yeah, you see family costs. And we've seen family costs going up almost as much as 100%. The price is doubling on a family, and then that young millennial, that single individual that's in their 20s to 30s, their cost in many times has gone up by a factor of 2 or 3 times.
So now let's talk about that young millennial, because they're out there, they're trying to get started, they're trying to launch, they're trying to get out of the basement, mom and dad's, and God love them for doing it. So what happens to them? They're making $25,000, $30,000, maybe $31,000. They don't have any tax deductions to speak of. They got to pay back their student loans, which are exorbitant. And now they're being hit with what? The penalty?
They could be
if they don't sign up for care.
I'm sorry?
If they don't sign up for
That's
for
right.
health care.
If they didn't sign up for health insurance, their penalty for 2016 is going to be 2.5% of their modified adjusted gross income. That's like everything in before they pay taxes.
And they can't afford that. Well, and now initially some could, but as it goes up, it's become a bigger and bigger bite. Will that force them to take coverage, or will it force them to say, look, the IRS come after me? There's a lot of bad things that could come from that. That aren't going to help somebody in their 20s.
Right. I think more than anything, what's going to force them to get coverage is going to be as they continue to move through their life stages and, settle down, get married, have children. The penalty we know is set to index to go up again next year. We don't know what that amount is going to be. Well, where is it that the penalty is worse than getting coverage? And the difference, if you're offered coverage through an employer, many times that gap between going without or purchasing that insurance we've seen is maybe $500 a year when you factor in the tax implications.
It seems to me, Danny, this is just me looking at it. You're the expert. Tell me if I'm really off base. Please do. But it seems to me that what you mentioned before, it's that feeling of, I've got insurance now. I'm paying this much a month. Yeah, it's a bite, but I'm paying it. I feel good about it. And then you go in, that high deductible for what is essentially catastrophic to many families is the one that's going to have people shaking their head.
Yeah, and that's why you saw so many people cancel their policies in the first year of this. There were in 2014 is the first full year that we actually have full data for. 2015 hasn't been released yet, but there were 8 million people that signed up. 6.5 million of those people had coverage that was canceled. So you had 1.5 million net new policies, and at the end of the year, there were 700,000 of those still standing. And then over 300,000 were actually canceled due to citizenship status.
That's not a pretty picture. Do you see any changes forthcoming during this calendar year that we are in right now as we hit the month of February? Do you see any changes this year with the way Obamacare is done, or is it going to take another year of sorting out the data points?
So this year is going to be a really interesting year, and I would say probably more so than last year. Within the next 90 days, I expect big things to be announced. And the reason why is that this year is kind of the run out of the extension for people to keep their plan, even on a group basis through their employer. So many employers are going to be forced to opt into this new Obamacare plan. Well, it's an election year, and the last time we had an election year is when President Obama gave everybody a 2-year hiatus to defer this. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 90 days if they take that up again, since it's an election year.
No, wait a minute. So you're saying that in an election year something could come down the pike, political, that would change national health? No, you can't be serious. Yeah, I think he's very serious. Danny O'Connell, appreciate you being with us today, your expertise. We always enjoy talking with him. He is the healthcare plan 24/7, 365. We are 1320 WILS.